Hi, and welcome to Pushbox Banter. I'm Daniel.
And I'm Craig, and today we're going to talk about the Spanish Grand Prix, or the Circuit de Catalonia. We've got all sorts of good stuff. All sorts of stuff for this week. Things that we're coming into, things that we're thinking about, talking about. Last week we had Mercedes doing great. So are they going to be able to continue? Is it just like a one-time flash in the pan? RB, that we've got some different teams coming in with upgrades. RB, Ferrari. V-Carb, they had some big upgrades. McLaren was basically staying around the same. I think they may have had one small upgrade, but it's basically like the same car. So we've got a lot of really cool things. But one of the cool things that we've got this weekend, and I guess is evolution as we've gone through the first 9 races, this being the 10th race, is that at the start of the year was Red Bull domination. Max Verstappen was so far out in front, and Perez was right there with him. They were just so far out in front of everybody and so much better. And it was to the point where we were like, man, why are we going to have the rest of these races? It was ridiculous. And now, we've got McLaren, we've got Ferrari, and Red Bull, and Mercedes right there with them going into this weekend. So, the big thing is hey, what's going to go on? But Mercedes thinks they have things figured out to a point. So that's awesome because we've had 4 different pole sitters in the past 4 races, past 4 weeks. So, well, not 4 weeks, but the past 4 races. So, that's one of the cool things about the F1 races is the evolution as the season goes. It doesn't always happen this way, but it is this year, and it's going to make for some awesome racing and some awesome competition throughout the rest of the year, I think.
I think you're totally right, Craig. I don't think any of us expected it to be as competitive as it is right now. Mm-hmm. I think we were for sure like, oh, this is going to end by, the European break or the spring or the summer break. This would be over. Mm-hmm. No, this is just beginning.
Yeah.
I think we're 60 points off from the championship, really, for Red Bull dominating that. And now we're kind of back to it's getting close.
Yeah.
So I think this is going to take the whole season to kind of determine who's going to come out the winner. Mm-hmm. But definitely, it's not going to be Red Bull. Not as easy as we anticipated it to be.
Yeah, no kidding. And we've seen a lot of different things too as it evolves. Even Alpine is evolving and isn't competing for last place. They've actually had a little bit of speed in their car.
Yeah, totally. And I know we were talking about this because we saw it little by little almost every race. They were just creeping up even one place, and now we're starting to see them in the points. So
yeah,
I think that's pretty cool. I think they're definitely a team we should look out for to see. What is it that they're going to bring? Obviously, going into the weekend, we saw them bringing in some new faces, or should I say faces we've seen before?
Maybe faces we've seen before.
Yeah. So they brought Flavio Briatore back.
And he is the infamous guy that we've talked about before.
Yeah, he's pretty infamous for many reasons. But he was sacked by the same people, the same folks. Basically the same Renault that used to have the team back in 2008. So we had a little, we had a previous episode where we talked about Crashgate, and Flavio was a big part of that story, right? Yeah. And he eventually got reprimanded by the FIA and eventually sacked by his team and was gone for, the better part of 15 years?
Yeah.
And he's back. So he's back as a special advisor this time. Though he's been in the wings with Fernando Alonso as acting as his agent, manager, etc.
Interesting, that he is. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so I'm curious to see how that's going to pan out. If that's going to still be the case, though, we know Fernando is under contract for 2 years, so it might not be something that comes up. But we do have him back as a special advisor for the Alpine team, which is, of course, Renault.
Yeah.
Right. So, yeah, that's curious. I think it's one of those things that could mean many things, and it's up for interpretation.
Yeah.
I think some folks are thinking it's more of a, can Flavio bring this team up and sell them? Or is it just, can he come and light a fire? So who knows? I think, or maybe can he come in and help the team principal, by taking stuff off his plate? I mean, there's a reason why some of these teams have special advisors, for example, the helmets and back in the day, the Niki Laudas, et cetera. So they do serve their purpose, and hopefully it's for the better of the team and of the car. It seems like what he was saying in some of his earlier in the weekend was that the idea is for the team to get that car back into a competitive space. That drivers are more or less a dime a dozen. His focus is for the car to be competitive. So hopefully he can light a fire there, and we see something interesting happen. More interesting happen with the Alpine team.
Yeah.
And we don't just talk about the people they're firing now.
Right. Yeah, no kidding.
We're talking about a hire.
No kidding. That's
good
true.
for them.
That's true. That is true. Well, so everybody coming to Spain, we've got high hopes coming in, and there's a lot of cool things about this track. It's got a lot of high speed, low speed corners. So your car has to be really good in all aspects to perform well here. So
yeah.
What are we going to see? I mean, that's part of the exciting thing is like we've been seeing over the past few weeks, different teams creeping up on Red Bull, getting really close. And now like everybody's talk is Red Bull doesn't have the best car. Somebody else does. Yeah. So, so we go through practice this weekend, we go through qualifying, and, what do we see here?
We see exactly that Red Bull doesn't have the fastest car.
Yeah.
We know that Verstappen got to, before Norris had his pole lap, he was in pole position and he was towed by his teammate, Sergio Perez. So we know that what the time he had, you could subtract a couple tenths off, and that's probably where the Red Bull should have been. So Norris knocked it out the park. He was super fast. And we know that McLaren is probably the car to beat. Moving forward, I think, because Barcelona is kind of like the tell, that's where you can see, like you said, which cars perform in all, I guess, facets, right? The low speeds, the high speed. It's a high degradation track, so you have multiple pit stops, and all the flaws kind of come out, right? And thankfully, we have Verstappen, and Red Bull, can depend on Verstappen, but then you have Sergio on the other side, right? You kind of have the Red Bull sandwiching everybody else, and McLaren again just being awesome.
Yeah, I mean, going through qualifying, and you've got. McLaren had a great Q3.
Yep.
Well, let me restate that. Norris for McLaren had a great Q3.
Yeah.
Piastri went out of bounds a couple of times, so he ended up not getting a lap in Q3.
It's almost like they mimicked each other, didn't they?
Yeah,
Red Bull and McLaren. I think you kind of had the same deal. You had
That's a good point.
You had Verstappen, Norris, and then you had Piastri, Sergio, kind of sandwiching the two Mercedes, two Ferraris together.
Yeah, it's true. That's true. So we ended up seeing Mercedes do really well in qualifying again. So they're right up there with Ferrari. And so exciting stuff. We've got Russell starting in fourth. We've got Hamilton up there as well. So qualifying, exciting stuff because we've got four teams that we were expecting to do well in qualifying. They do. Now we've got these same four teams going into the race with all close opportunities to win, all really good cars. And in looking at some of the information, the Ferrari probably had the least downforce out of all of them, but still, could perform well on the track. I mean, it's just slightly off, but the Red Bull, though, in looking at it, they had the most downforce. Norris was the fastest car in qualifying. So how is that going to play out when the race starts, when the lights go off?
And away they go.
Yes, and away they go. Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, interesting stuff, we go right into the race.
Mm-hmm.
Race goes off. Of course, there's only 19 that are starting because Albon wanted to change one of his power units, so he had to start from the pit.
You had to start from the pits. That's right.
So, I mean, Sargent didn't have to start at 20th this week because of that.
Yeah.
But so we start with Norris in first.
Yeah.
And Verstappen in second. Verstappen has, some could argue that he has a little bit better racing line in a way because he's on the inside curve going into turn one. But it's, right off the front, Norris moves over to the right to try to slow down Verstappen. And he pushes Verstappen where he gets two wheels into the grass. Verstappen has to slow down just a touch. And as he does that, Russell is starting in fourth, so he's behind Verstappen. And all of a sudden, Russell seizes the day and gets in both of their slipstreams, passes them, goes around the outside of both of them, and goes into first and just takes off. And then Verstappen's able to recover and get past Norris at that point. So he's in second. So the race is on. So everybody's there's a lot of opportunities for passing. Everybody's starting on soft tires because they all want to get that good start going. So there you go. And then they're off. And
they're off. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think the big winner there was Russell and Mercedes because they really took advantage of I don't know what Norris was thinking, to be honest. I think when he didn't have the best start, and when he went to block off Verstappen was already at his rear right tire, so he couldn't really block him off.
Yeah,
and what he ended up doing was just kind of pushing him into the grass, which it was almost like you may be wasting too much energy and too much time doing that, where you could have just gone straight. Maybe taking a wider turn, giving him some room in the inside, but then taking the inside into turn two, which is exactly what Russell did, is take the slipstream from both, like you said, Verstappen and Norris, and basically just take that wide, eventually take the inside, and he gave space, which is crazy to me.
Yeah.
He didn't close anybody up. He gave them plenty of space, but yet he was still way in front of both of them. And yeah, I mean, obviously it took 2 laps before everybody got to back into the exact order that they needed to be in. But it was Norris's to lose, and towards the end of the race, I mean, that's exactly what we saw. It was getting close. There were some interesting tactics, I think, that played out with tire management and pit stops.
Yeah,
both of which I think McLaren failed at, and maybe failed at by giving Norris a little bit too much autonomy when they could have won it based off of strategy and just racecraft.
Yeah.
And I think they failed on both ends.
I think you're right, because there were opportunities where they kept Norris out. Norris and Leclerc stayed out way too long on the soft tires. And the thought process is, well, if they stay out a little bit longer, then they switch tires and they'll be able to catch up with Verstappen, or maybe they can push these a lot longer than what Verstappen was able to do, and later in the race it'll come back and benefit them. But that really wasn't the case. They weren't able to go that much further without it. It was like those tires just dropped, and so both of them had to pit.
Fight their way back, right?
Yeah, they had to fight their way back. So then they're going through dirty air, and nobody likes that.
Yeah, and eventually, I mean, had the race been one or two more laps longer, maybe he could have caught him. But having to catch him twice, come on, that's a lot of work to put onto the team, onto the driver. He could have just pitted earlier, blocked off, or responded to Verstappen's pit stops in general, but waiting 3-4 laps and then losing half a second or something per lap to a person on new tires doesn't make sense.
I think if he would have responded to Verstappen, if Verstappen's pitting, then he's in the pit too. I think that if he had done that it would have, in retrospect, he would have had a better chance at winning.
I agree.
As this went, he was down like 2 to 4 seconds for like 15 to 20 laps, and he couldn't make that up.
Yeah.
They were both pushing. Verstappen was pushing. You never heard him complaining about the car's having problems at that point.
Right.
The car in qualifying, like I said before, it had better downforce.
Yeah.
I mean, he's going to go better around those curves. McLaren's not going to catch him at that point.
Right.
Wishful thinking and confident thinking on McLaren's part, and thinking, oh, well, we got the faster car.
Yeah.
And at the end of the race, Verstappen's sitting in first again, and McLaren's in second, and Norris is upset because he had the better car and he feels like he messed up and lost it. And yeah, maybe so.
Verstappen agreed.
Yeah. So, I mean, and it's like, okay, you had this opportunity and it fell through your fingers.
Yeah.
But also, like, it's not totally like, hey, you totally messed up. It's like you got beat by one of the best.
Yeah.
So you've got to be at your best if you're going to beat the best. But it's interesting seeing Verstappen having to pull these type of wins out. Which of course he gets in the lead at first, and then he has a couple of pit stops, so he's having to work his way back into those lead positions. But it's interesting watching him have to do that from where, like, we were at the beginning of the season, because from the beginning of the season, it's like the lights would go off and the race was over. He was so far out in front right away,
Yeah.
and you knew there was nobody catching him.
He was like one pit stop ahead of everybody.
Yeah, it was just ridiculous. So now, like, you actually get to see him have to race and have pressure on him and see what he does and know that his car isn't the best car out there. So it's fun seeing somebody, in my opinion, it's fun seeing him have to work a little bit at it. Or seeing a car that's in first or that's winning the race that may not be the best car.
It's not all lovely and great. And,
Yeah.
it was very lovely, relaxing.
Yeah, because of course, if the guy has the best car, he can be the best driver in the world.
Yeah.
If he's really good and comparative to everybody else. But if he has a car that's not as competitive or not as good and he's winning, to me that's a better win. But he still has a great car.
I mean, they're bringing upgrades.
Yeah.
Right. Like, he did have a new engine.
Mm-hmm.
The car had some upgrades, some cooling upgrades, some rear wing upgrades.
Yeah.
He's maxed his
the power unit.
Power units, correct. So, like, he should be, in theory, he should be pretty good. The car should be good, and it's just good enough to get him, to keep there. But, like, I don't know, like, McLaren still seems to be ahead of the game. So
I think they are. I mean, this was the Red Bull's first real upgrades that they've had. So, next week they're going to be at the Red Bull Ring.
The Red Bull Ring, yeah, that's right.
And this is one of those the Barcelona circuit circuit de Catalonia is one of those that that's a good test for cars to see kind of where they are. It's a good test for bringing upgrades and to see how that goes. So, he did.
I mean, it is where they normally test during the winter break. So
yeah, it's a good place. What about Mercedes?
Mercedes, I think, is finally dialing it in. I think they're starting to understand their car, and they've got two drivers that have figured it out as well. So, I'm glad for Hamilton. I think he needed it. I think his psyche needed it. Every time you see him, his like shoulders are slooped down. He's all, you see, like,
it's not standing up.
I always think of, like, I've seen like that image of Bugs Bunny kind of like looking all sad.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? No, that's him typically. And now I think it's nice to see him back in where, one, on the podium, two, back where he should be, and being just somewhat competitive and showing that, he can race, and he can race amongst the best, as of course everybody knows, but also give his teammate, a little bit of trouble, which is nice.
Yeah. So going back to the beginning of the race, like, you've got Russell and he does that awesome pass, goes into first place, but he's not able to hold it. Verstappen passes him within a couple of laps, and he's off to the races for the time being, at least. And Russell kind of keeps slowing down. Norris ends up passing him at some point. But for most of the race after that, like he's in contention, but it's more of like when is he going to get into third?
Right.
You know, is it going to be third or fourth? But they have him on soft tires and then they put him on hard tires, and he comes out and he's doing fastest lap. Like I mean, he's flying around the track. But he's also starts complaining that he's got, you know, he's sliding all over the place, and that was stuff that in the practice laps that they'd kind of figured out. I thought.
Yeah, I think they had figured it out that the hard tire was not the tire to be on. Period.
So why did they put him on a hard tire? Because when Hamilton came in, they put him on mediums, and
well, I think
So I mean, and then Hamilton catches back up.
I think they had figured it out with some of the other drivers. I think one other driver had. I think it was Sainz had the hard tire, and it wasn't working for him. He was sliding all over the place, and I think they did. Even the commentators ended up mentioning at some point that just having the hard tire itself was the worst tire to have. The track works best on the stickiest tire available, even if it degrades. That's the point. That's the reason why it's a 2 or even a 3-stop race, right? Why use a hard tire?
So yeah, why use a hard tire? I mean, the announcers know it.
Yeah.
I'm sure Mercedes knows it. They've got all these strategists that are there at the race, that are there back at home. Yeah. They're watching the race. They're hearing the same thing. They see all the data. Yeah. They've seen all the data from practice. Yeah. They've seen all the data from quali. They've seen all the data from the other cars, no doubt. Yeah. And yet they still put them on hard tires.
They lost it for him for sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure he's upset, but also, you know, to them, I don't think it. I mean, it should matter, right? That's their driver. Hamilton's not really their driver anymore, right? So why give him that preferential strategy?
Right.
What were they thinking, that, you know, he would outlast those mediums? I don't think so.
Yeah.
So
maybe they would work their way into
a working condition, maybe.
But I don't know. That was just kind of odd to me.
And that was only 1 or 2 laps after the fact, right? After Russell had come in, that they gave him the mediums, Hamilton, right?
And they also, they had a really slow pit stop with Russell. It was like a 5-point-something seconds where he was stopped. Yeah. I was just, they had some problems with they're putting on the rear left tire or something like this, what it looked like. But yeah, now to Russell's credit, at the end of the race, he came up and congratulated Lewis for coming in second or third. Rather.
Yeah, I mean he's a team player. He's a sport. Yeah, he's fine. But
yeah, I mean they were gonna, as it turned out, even if they had put him on the mediums, he would have come in. Yeah, that team would have had third and fourth place. Wrapped up. As it turned out, he came in fourth. Not bad, but
I'm actually surprised he wasn't as aggressive as he normally is. Sometimes he's a little reckless. He doesn't like to give up a spot. Yeah. He gave up plenty of spots, both to Norris and to Verstappen in the beginning of the race. And he didn't really put up much of a fight. So I'm curious what the deal was there. Was it just, you know, fight for a podium or just fight for the points? Because he wasn't fighting for a win.
There was, that's true. There was one point where he did fight Norris when Norris was trying to pass him, but Russell was on older tires, Norris was on fresher tires, and I think he knew that he couldn't hold him off for very long, but he did for just a little bit, and so it's kind of cool. I'm sure that he held him up for about a full second in one lap, which I'm sure that Verstappen was very thankful for since he won by 2 seconds. So, but hey, you know,
kept him off his DRS, right?
Yeah.
And so, it's good to see that they're doing a little bit better. And I think they're only going to get better as the season progresses. I mean, we still have 14 races to go. So
so the beginning races, the knock on their car was that it wasn't good in cold weather. This race, the track temperature was 40 degrees plus. So it started at 40 degrees. So that's 40 degre's Celsius, 100 degrees over 100
it's
Fahrenheit.
A very hot weather.
For those of us that like the Fahrenheit standard. But yeah, so their car actually was doing a lot better in warmer weather this time. So that's great to see too. Yeah. Which bodes well for the rest of the season.
I think so.
Now we've got 4 teams, Ferrari, last week, and they had a disastrous week. This week, much better.
I wouldn't say much.
Well,
I wouldn't say much better
compared to last week. Last week, what they were, didn't finish on, it was both cars.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you can't get that much worse than that.
Yeah.
But this week they weren't, good enough to be on the podium, but they were competitive. I think that Sainz was a little bit more competitive than what his place ended up. I think that because he had a couple of little bumps along the way that I think it probably damaged some of the floor on his car or something, or a wing, but maybe giving away a little bit of performance. But
that's right. He was touching a few people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he and Hamilton,
and Leclerc.
Yeah, and Leclerc at one point.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I thought Ferrari, they did a good job, but they didn't really they weren't really pushing for the podium, but they were clearly where they ended up was clearly.
Yeah, they were in the mix for, P4.
yeah, they were
in the mix
close.
for higher up in the grid, but they definitely lacked pace, they lacked downforce.
They just weren't quite as good.
Yeah, they weren't where I think Fred wants them to be, but okay, put Canada, just trash Canada, and then go back. They were in Monaco, they won Monaco, right?
It's a great parade.
Yes, and now you think, okay, now they're back in Europe, they're going to do something great, or they're going to be up there, and they looked like they had all this momentum going, and all of a sudden, it just takes one little tumble, and then all of a sudden you're just not where you want to be. And then you have McLaren that's just constantly in this upward trajectory, and it's like, okay, well, that's not gonna help when McLaren's going in one direction and you're kind of not. You're just staying a little bit stagnant there.
Yeah.
So where it was looking like Ferrari, McLaren, Red Bull, now it's just kind of looking like a McLaren, Red Bull. So I think we'll see as we go through the rest of Europe, but it was nice to see the battles. It was nice to see Sainz showing a little bit more heart in the races. I feel in the beginning of the season, we were just talking about how he was driving like a, not like a lion, not like not like Alonso, but he was driving with some sort of passion.
Yes.
And then it kind of tapered off.
Yeah.
To the point where we weren't talking about him anymore. And it was nice to see him, obviously it's his home race. I did put him in my predictions.
Yes, you did.
As I did Alonso.
I had the team of Ferrari in third, but they didn't quite make it. Yes. Yeah, we'll ignore the Alonso.
Yeah.
I did have Verstappen and Norris.
You did
1-2. Yeah.
You did have Verstappen and
those
Norris.
right.
You did pick those right.
Yeah.
And then I don't know if picking a team for third counts.
Well, neither one made it.
We got to define our predictions by racer, not race team.
I know,
but I went, España, Espanol, and it didn't really play out in my, it didn't work out. But I know it was wishful.
So, yes.
And he did race really okay. And it was nice to see him kind of coming back. And he did mention, and you might touch on this, that in his post-race interviews, that he was more or less driving week by week, just thinking about, what he could have done better, what he's going to do for the next race, and not really thinking about his future so much as the current race he's in. Yeah. And I think that's exactly what he needs to do, is focus on his racecraft and get it dialed in, even if it's with a team that he's not going to be in anymore.
Yeah.
His job should be, I'm going to beat my team member, my teammate here.
Well, I thought it was kind of interesting. Some of what he was saying there too was that, hey, he's been in racing for 10 years in F1, and you only get so many chances racing for a team where you're actually competitive to possibly win each week. You only get so many chances with that, and he knows that, he understands that, and I think too, he looks at his future and he's like, well, the teams that are out there, I might not be able to win with. This next year.
That makes sense.
It's possible that maybe, he might be on a team that's able to win next year, but it may not be.
Let's be realistic.
Yeah, if he's he's rumored to go to Williams, and if that's the case, then yeah, he's probably not going to win too much next year,
or the year after,
or the year after, or the year after. Yeah, you never know, but it's going to be challenging for him. So that was some of the comments there. But I will have to say, like, as you know, I was watching the F1 pre-race show, and Tim Buxom, he's walking down and he does his walk through and he talks about each of the riders. And as he's walking through and talking about all of the riders, the song that's in the background is this dance beat that's going on. And it's a lady singing "Smooth Operator" as they're going along, right as he gets up to Carlos. It was pretty perfectly timed, but it was pretty funny because that was what was playing in the stadium.
That's funny.
He was the smooth operator. Yeah.
He is.
Yeah. So that's one of the few times you're going to get to hear me sing.
Oh yeah, no.
Yeah.
You might get some requests from our.
You never know. You never know.
Very small audience.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. You never know. Yeah.
That's great. That's great. No.
Like and subscribe to my singing voice.
Yeah, and then Leclerc was kind of bumping around. He's touching some, he touched signs.
Yeah.
He was kind of like, he was there. He was all right. I'm sure he wanted to do more. But
I think there's place in front of signs.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, their car it was really good. It wasn't as good as the others in front of them.
True.
I mean, that really oversimplifies racing right there.
No, you're right, though.
But this race did kind of show that. Like, we didn't have any virtual safety cars going on, which was a little odd. I think only
Albon was in the gravel for just a little bit towards the very end.
Actually, I think he's the only person that had all four tires, into gravel or into grass at one time.
Yeah.
There were a few people, I think.
Alonso
hit some gravel just with one wheel.
I think Alonso during the first two corners took like a safety exit or something like that.
Yeah, he took a safety exit. I think at one point he may have touched a little bit of gravel.
Yeah.
And Sainz took a little bit of the safety exit, sort of. But there wasn't a whole lot like that. I was a little surprised with that, but that made it to where it was basically a two-stop race at that point. Yeah. It was exciting.
Speaking of Alonso, that was also his home race. And, he raced hard for, what was it, like 15th or something like that? I mean,
his car was not they did not come into this race expecting to do very well. So when they placed where they
12th.
Placed, to start the race, he was very excited about that. But he finished 12th. He started 10th. But the only reason he started 10th was because Perez had that 3-place penalty.
That's right.
And started 11th. So I mean, not great for him. His car didn't look that great all weekend. Same with Stroll, kind of mimicked him.
Yeah.
Hey, that's how that goes sometimes. Back of the grid stuff. I mean, your standard things going on with, he actually had Joe finishing in front of Bottas. Sargent, he honored things well and continued his update with finishing last again, which I really should look at his stats and see like how many times he's finished last. Sometimes he may be finishing, 17th or 18th, but how many DNFs were behind him? Poor guy. I mean, and that's kind of a weird thing too. Like you look at their qualifying and their car, like each lap in qualifying, he was improving his time.
Yeah.
But everybody else was improving their time too. So like he just stayed in the same place.
Constantly he the worst.
Yeah, he just couldn't improve it as much as everybody else was improving.
I feel for that guy.
Yeah. I mean, it's not like, it could be way worse.
Yeah.
I don't know how much way worse, but it could be that he is not improving on every lap, which could be the case.
But I think the way worse is him just not being on track, to be honest.
That's true.
And that's, I think, an eventuality. We're going to be talking about Sargent's probably not going to be there.
So who do you think, like with the silly season and everything going on? Who do you think on some of these new spots that are opening or have been opened, and who's going to fill them? And
Yeah. So
Who's going to go where?
Well, for Williams, it's for sure. I mean, I think it's almost for sure we're going to see Sainz there, right?
So Sainz and Albon.
Yeah, Sainz and Albon.
It's definitely an upgrade for Williams, like huge upgrade.
Oh yeah, no, for sure. I think if they can afford him and if they can promise him the world and a really good car, I think that's the best they can do. And I think he's going to take that team to a new level if he's got the car to get him even in the midfield.
Well, think about the wealth of knowledge that
Yeah.
he potentially has.
Yeah.
I mean, he's been with the RB team, the Red Bull. I mean, he's been with some really, really good teams.
Yeah.
And then you got James Valls, who's been with Mercedes. So you combine like knowledge from all the top teams and putting them on Williams.
And let's not
what happens?
And let's not forget.
It's wishful thinking.
And well, let's not forget. It's also, I mean, they're one of the winningest teams on
That's
the field.
true. Ever.
I just think we
fourth
forget.
winningest of all time.
Yeah, I think we're just forgetting that they're, they were one of the best teams out there, and they just need to remember that. But having a driver that can take them to that next level, I think that's good. And not to say that Albon can't. I think he can, but Albon doesn't have the experience, or not as high of the level of experience as a Sainz.
I think Sainz can give all the feedback that's needed to be given.
Albon can drive fast, right?
Yeah.
Like he can, but can he give what Sainz can give, or what a mature driver? I'm not saying he's not mature, but like that a more mature driver can give. I don't know. But I think that'll be interesting. The next thing would be Haas. What do you think about them?
Haas is an interesting one because you've got some different things going on with Haas, and so with Haas you've got got the potential, and everybody's talking about this is Ollie Behrman.
Ollie Behrman, yeah.
Which is kind of interesting because he has one great race, which he's still like, at the end of today, he was still in 13th place in the championship rankings right now.
Well, if we want to talk about rankings, he's higher in the Formula One rankings than the Formula 2 rankings.
Yes.
He's 16th in F2.
Right. Which is kind of, to me, is like, okay, well, is this like, should you really pull him over right now? Like, why are you gonna, like, why do you want to do that? Like, you've got Magnussen who's good. Like, do you want to keep him? There's rumors of Ocon going there. Okay. To me, I'm not
Ocon. Okay.
I'm not a huge fan, but I mean, yes, he is a good driver, but I just like everywhere he's gone, people talk about how bad of a teammate he is.
Yeah,
like, why do you want to bring that to your team if you're bringing a brand new person into F1? That doesn't seem like that's a good mix.
Yeah.
But, I'm not on the inside on that, so maybe I'm a little off on it. But to me, that doesn't make sense. So why not have like an older driver like Magnussen or Bottas in that position if you can?
Yeah.
To me, that makes more sense.
That makes sense.
Although Bottas is he's a unique personality.
Yeah.
He's a lot of fun to follow on Instagram.
Yeah, for sure.
So Haas is kind of a unique thing. So they're talking Behrman, they're talking Ocon going there.
Yeah.
Magnussen not. Which I'm kind of
like, I wouldn't be surprised.
It wouldn't surprise me if they have two new drivers there.
Yeah.
Come this next season.
Alpine
Gasly, I think he's been confirmed that he'll be on board next year.
Unofficially confirmed by Flavio.
Yeah, and officially by Flavio. So he hasn't said otherwise. I think that's where he'll stay.
Yeah.
So then you've got one other person going there. Who's that going to be?
Jack. I think it's Jack.
I think so too. I think they did a really smart thing with him. I don't know if Alpine's the one that pushed for him to be on some of the F1 broadcasts or not. I'm pretty sure that they were. That's smart.
Yeah.
I mean, because even if you start building a fan base for this driver.
Oh yeah.
Which is a great opportunity for him career-wise, but also like if he doesn't make it in racing, then he has another career that he can go to.
He could be a broadcaster.
Yeah, he could be a broadcaster. So, and so he's kind of got that down. I mean, these positions in the F1 drivers' positions, it's more than just driving a car anyway.
Yeah.
They're doing a lot of public appearances and talking to the public and so forth. So it really, I mean, it's a big win. I think it was a smart move for them anyway. It's a big win to have somebody in that role get comfortable with
Yeah.
the media before, where he can talk and answer questions that aren't like personal type questions necessarily. That are softball type questions.
I agree 100%
throwing the
with
high
you.
heat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree 100%.
Yes.
And Mercedes, are we seeing Antonelli go?
I think that's who's going to end
Yeah.
up there. I mean, the thought is like if they don't sign him, then somebody else is going to throw a bunch of money, and then he'll go someplace else. So then they'll miss that opportunity for a couple of years or a year or so,
Right.
Which I don't think they want to do. I think they want to bring him in and keep him in because he's statistically, he's, from what I hear, he's doing really well.
Yeah. He is 9th in the F2 championship, though.
Yeah. So I mean, it's
a competitive championship, so it kind of makes sense. But obviously he's a shining star for them. So why not give them the opportunity?
Yeah. So I mean, is he ready for that or not? Like, he's a shining star, but is he really ready? So, I don't know. But if they really think that he is, then sign him and let's go.
Yeah.
But if they
was
don't
Max
think that he
Verstappen
is,
ready when he was like 17? I don't know.
But he started racing pretty good, pretty quick. But so you've got Antonelli there. I would think too, like if they weren't going to sign him and he was going to go someplace else for a couple of years, I mean, I know that Williams is the hot spot for signs, but then to me that would be the
more
progression.
The natural progression would be Williams, take a year there, get comfortable with the F1 car, go to Mercedes afterwards, right?
Mm-hmm.
That would make sense.
Yeah.
But hey, if you go straight to the big leagues, there's two things, sink or swim. So he's either going to make it and stay there, or spend 2 years trying to make it and then see himself out.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
They've got Mick Schumacher in the wings waiting for his next step. He did the same thing. He spent a handful of years at Haas, didn't really do anything, and there he is, reserve driver for Mercedes. So
yeah,
this is how it happens.
Yeah, that's true. Well, then you've also got Sauber. You got Hulkenberg there.
So Sauber / Audi. Yeah, you got Hulkenberg, and my opinion. Gosh, I would love for Bottas to stay, because I feel if he doesn't stay, there aren't many more options for Bottas. But I don't think he's going to stay. I would agree with maybe a lot of pundits out there that say that it's probably Zhou, only because of the Chinese market and because he's not a bad driver.
Yeah,
Zhou has an opportunity to go to Alpine, I guess, but now with Gasly there and Jack kind of, having planted a seed there, I don't know that that's a good move for him either.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be Zhou.
A lot of people think that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Zhou makes more sense than Bottas. Bottas, it doesn't seem like he has as much financial pool. Which this is kind of sad. Like, they're race drivers. Like, you want somebody that's going to win.
Yeah.
I think Bottas is a better race driver and driver than Zhou is.
Oh, for sure.
And I think statistically it shows that, and historically it shows that. But he's getting up there in years, which he still is. It's hard to say how great or how bad he's driving because his car isn't the best. Most of the time he's finishing above Zhou. Today he didn't. But to me, he's a better driver.
Yeah.
He's a little bit of a personality-wise, is a little different than a lot of the drivers. In some ways that's good. In other ways, maybe that's a little bit of a challenge. So I think it's going to be tough for him. Like, to me, like the opportunities for him are Sauber or Haas. If Ocon's going there and Behrman there, that's pretty much he's not going to go there. So then you're pretty much left with Sauber, and I don't know if that's enough for him to. They switched his one of the guys that works closely with
his
him.
racing engineer.
Yes, his racing engineer. They switched it on him, without giving him any notice, and like just
No
a few days before
consultation,
the
yeah.
race that it was going to happen, or it had happened.
This was like 2 races back, 2 or 3 races
which
back, right?
tells me that he's probably not in their plans.
Yeah, no, I don't think so.
So I don't think he's going to stay there. So he's on the bubble. He needs to be hustling out
and
there.
what,
with some other
what were
teams
we
if he wants to
talking about?
stay.
That if he doesn't do this, he might do.
If he doesn't do this, obviously, a lot of the race drivers, when they stop racing F1, they'll race other F1 race or other types of automobile racing. But he might, and nobody's said this, but he might race like one of the Unbound gravel races on a bike.
Like on a bicycle.
On a bicycle, yes. He actually raced one a few weeks ago on one of the off weeks. I think the weekend I think it was before Montreal, and he actually placed third, podiumed on it. And these are professional. This is a professional circuit.
He is a high level athlete, by the way.
It is. It's a professional circuit. It's not as like you don't have all the top riders in the world like you do in professional road cycling. Or, they go to the Tour de France and stuff like that. These are probably not quite as good as that, but they're really, really good. Like for him to podium is pretty impressive.
No, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, but I think his partner, I think she rides professionally and is sponsored by a team, and so
that's awesome.
Yeah, but you'll see him riding his bike at the racetrack.
That's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think that
RB, you've got
RB.
Sonoda's already confirmed.
Yeah.
So you've got one seat left.
Yeah, Ricciardo. So I think a lot of people like Ricciardo, want him to stay there for the team and for the sport. I don't think he's good for that.
Yeah.
For that seat anymore.
Yeah.
I think he's better as like an ambassador of the sport than to be driving there when you have somebody like Lawson on the back, in the back burner, just kind of waiting for somebody to open up a seat for him. So I'd say give it to Lawson.
Yeah. I think that's probably going to happen unless the dollar figures show otherwise.
Yeah.
Like they've got to be pretty heavy towards.
And I'm sure there's like marketing people and sponsorship money and just 20 other variables that have to get aligned.
But like his performance, I mean, he was comparatively with Sonoda this weekend, it was better.
Yeah, he was better. Sonoda ended up like almost dead last above Sargent. Which,
he beat Sargent.
Which was strange, and we didn't touch on. But it's something. Why was RB or V-carb so bad this weekend? Who knows?
True. Yeah, they did all the upgrades.
They
both said,
like
"Hey,
8 upgrades.
Our car feels great.
Car feels good.
They
Super
didn't have any
slow.
pace.
Yeah,
it was really weird when Yuki was running in qualifying, and he was like, "What?
We didn't make it,
but the car felt so good." I was like, "Oh, sorry, buddy.
Yeah,
you didn't make it." Yeah, I don't know, man. I think that he's probably on his way out. He might get lucky and make it another year, but if his performance kind of stays where it is right now, I think he's on his way out.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So.
All right. Well.
So drivers, silly season. Still no word on Adrian Newey. Still rumors with him going to Ferrari. Rumors Aston Martin. Those are kind of the main two.
Yeah, time will tell for sure.
Yeah, maybe he takes a year off. Who knows?
Yeah, who knows? And then next week we're in Austria.
Yes, Austria.
Styria. That's the state, I think, in which it is.
The state. Yeah, that's what it is. Spielberg.
Spielberg.
City. Yeah, Spielberg.
Yeah, Spielberg, Styria.
And the Strava Mountains.
Mm-hmm,
Is that
exactly.
What the mountains are called there? Something like that. I wrote it down, and I don't know. I don't know if that's really the actual pronunciation of it, but it's one of the more beautiful. Like it's set in a beautiful scenery, in a beautiful spot of the world. But yes, the Red Bull Ring.
It's a small track, 71 laps.
Mm-hmm.
I think we'll see some cool things there. It's the Red Bull Ring. Will Red Bull
Yeah. So
Win.
will we see Perez? Will this be a renaissance or a comeback?
A renaissance for
Perez of sorts.
You know, this
Hopefully.
week, maybe I think we can give him a pass, right? He got into Q3.
Yeah.
Obviously, he started the race a little farther back because of his penalty last week or last 2 weeks in Montreal.
I think he had a 3-stop race this week too, didn't he?
Strangely, he had a 3-stop range. I think he went soft, medium.
Yeah.
Which was really unusual that he started with softs, went to softs again. Actually, he started soft, first pit stop, went soft again, then went medium, then went soft. So many stops. But you know what? He did all right. He passed Ocon on the last lap, on the very last lap to get, I think it was P8.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think so. Yeah. It was 8 or 9 that he ended up with.
Yeah.
8.
Yeah.
Yeah. P8.
So good for him. And I mean, I don't know if that's good for him, but like, hey, it's
better than
making
last
the best,
week and the week before.
making the best of a bad weekend.
Yeah.
And I think this next week, you know what? They had upgrades this week, and they dial it in and do a little bit better. Both of them, obviously Perez more because he's got the bigger gap to close, but to his teammate. And I hope he does it. And hopefully, you know, we see both Red Bulls kind of back at the top, and then having a little bit more competitive time with the McLarens.
Yeah, it would be nice to see the Red Bull buddies driving close together.
Yeah, you know, 1, 2, 3, somewhere in there. Then you know, 1 and 8, just sandwiching everybody doesn't really help either one of them, to be honest. So, yeah.
Well,
but what are your predictions?
Let's see. Next week, Verstappen's
drivers this time.
Okay. Verstappen's going to win.
Okay.
You're going to see Norris be very competitive. He'll be in second place. And then in third place, you're going to see Russell.
Okay.
Yeah. Over
Verstappen,
Hamilton.
Norris, Russell.
Yeah, Verstappen, Norris, Russell.
Okay. I'll say Verstappen, Leclerc, Norris.
You're wrong.
We'll see.
I'm kidding.
We shall see.
I have no idea.
And this
Well,
is
I do, but
this is a triple header, so we'll be talking
next
a little
week.
bit more frequently next week.
Yes.
And the week and the week after that. So can't wait.
Yes. It'll be good times.
Yeah, and in the meantime, that gives you all a week to like, subscribe.
Don't put it off. Don't procrastinate this week.
Like, subscribe, comment, only good things. And then, you know, on your preferred platform, whatever that is.
Yes.
And in the meantime, you know, stay tuned.
Yes. Till next week, we will talk again.
We shall.
On Pushbox Banter.
Thanks, Craig.
Thank you, Daniel. It's been good times.
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.